Wanted to make a quick video to update you guys on some things I've been working on. You can see one of them behind me, but I did get a car lift installed. I've been finishing up all the electrical work that I've been doing myself, and yeah, hoping to get back to some R&D, some Helmuse things, and working on the T-5R again. I really want to get some of my products for sale and get Helmuse operating again. I want to bring this channel back and hopefully start doing some more car things, and finally got all the big stuff done, and I finally have a functioning garage again. So I'm looking forward to some more R&D things, Helmuse things, T-5R things, and I hope you guys are too, because I'm really going to try and get things going again here. It's been a long 3 years building this home shop and buying a house and renovating it all and getting all this stuff done so that I could have very low overhead and have my own personal shop in my backyard and not having to pay rent anymore. So I think it'll be worth it. I think it's really gonna help the channel, the business, and obviously my hobby and passion for cars. So looking forward to it, and hope you guys are too, and hope you enjoy a few of these update clips. Well, I'm making some really good forward progress here in my garage, and pretty much got the last big thing accomplished that I wanted to before I could really begin using this and making some more content. So I ended up purchasing a brand new lift. Before I had a Benwheel TP7, and it was a good lift for when I had my old garage, but it was 40, 50 years old, and it was kind of a death trap. It was really starting to show its age, and the lift install company basically said, hey, we're not gonna certify this if we install it, you know. And I kind of took that to heart and said, well, if I'm spending all this money on this garage, I might as well get something new, get something modern, something a lot more legit. And also I had very tall ceilings and very big garage doors, so it only made sense to get something new that was a lot bigger. So this is the lift I ended up going with. It's a Challenger CL10A V3-2. It's got the 2-foot extensions at the top, so it's a total of 14 tall and 12 wide, which is absolutely perfect because I have 14-foot ceilings and I have 12 by 12 doors. So the width fits perfectly within this door. So you can get as big of a vehicle as can fit on this through the door, and you can lift it up as tall as you need because I got the 14-foot ceilings. So really the point of this 2-foot extension is if you have really tall vehicles like a box truck, a van, or a really big regular truck, you can lift it up the full height without having to worry about it maxing out and hitting the shutoff bar up there. And since I have the 14-foot ceilings, it only made sense to get the 2-foot extension. You can actually go up to 16 foot, but that's a little excessive and I don't have that ceiling height. There's 3 different configurable widths. I was allowed to do the biggest width, which is 12 foot, because I had 12-foot doors. You know, if you had 10-foot doors, it probably really wouldn't make sense to have the full 12-foot width because, well, you couldn't even get a vehicle wide enough in here to use the full 12-foot. But like I said, it's gonna be mostly sedans, mostly passenger trucks, but it's kind of nice because it gives you a lot of, even if you have small cars like this, it gives you a lot of room between there. My old lift was a lot less wide, and you know, you can only crack the door open like this much. So if you wanted to get in there to do some stuff with it on the lift, it would be really tricky. I mean, this, you can get that door fully opened and get in the car, work on stuff with it always on the lift. So that's really nice having the extra width. I went as wide as possible and as tall as possible, and it worked out. The other thing I really like about this lift is you can get a 3-phase motor for it as an additional option. Since I have 3-phase here in my home garage, I figured it made absolute sense to get the 3-phase motor because they run a lot smoother and they run at a higher average power than the single-phase motors, just due to how 3-phase works. It's also got the locks here. So it has locks on both sides, but it has the lever on just one side. So you can unlock both sides just from standing over here. It's got dual cylinders. So it has dual hydraulic cylinders on each side, instead of having one big cylinder on one side and then relying on cables or some sort of chain or something to, you know, hoist up both sides. It's of course got the equalizer cables as well. So if maybe, you know, one side of the car sits a little bit lower or higher, everything will always be level when you lift it out, and those equalizer cables will equalize both the arms to the same height. So that's really a nice thing to have. The arms are very nice too, because it's got these locks down here, that auto lock. So it has these pins here, and when the car raises up, these pins actually drop down and it locks all the arms automatically. So there's no manual locks you have to mess with. And that's a safety thing so that the arms can't swing out. It also comes with lift stack adapters, with a maximum one being 6-inch. So if you have a truck whose frame sits a lot higher than the hoist arms, you can actually put that lift stack adapter on it, so that when you raise it up, you only have to raise it up a little bit before it starts making contact with the frame, and it'll get you an extra 6 inches, versus if you didn't have that, you'd have to raise the arms up X amount before it hit the frame and then start lifting the car, because truck frames obviously sit a lot higher than sedan frames. So that's nice, gives you a little bit of extra height so you can get that full height. This is also a varosymmetric design. So you can see the front arms are actually 90 degree. So that means you can do either asymmetric or symmetric lift pattern. Right now I have it set up in the asymmetric pattern, where the front arm's at a 90. And this is great for sedans and smaller wheelbases to keep the car real nice and stable. But if you have a really long truck or something with a really long wheelbase, this arm can actually swing out and then keep extending out. So that way you can have a very wide symmetric lift pattern, where basically both the rear arm and the front arm would be at the same angle, versus how they're at different angles here. You see that's at a 45, that's at a 90. So that's a really nice feature where you can do both, because a lot of lifts, it's only one or the other, or you got to tilt the columns a certain way. This, you can install the column straight, and then you just, depending on what your wheelbase is, you can figure it just on the arm here, symmetric or asymmetric. The anchors, uses 3/4 inch anchors, and there's 7 of them. They go down 5 inches. One thing I was worried about was hitting my radiant heat tubes, but I do have 6.5 inch concrete. So, I mean, I had like an inch and a half clearance, but I wasn't sure if anything floated up or not, but we went down 5 inches on all of these, which was the recommended. Had no issues hitting the radiant heat, so now I know for the future I can go down 5 inches reliably without having to worry about that radiant heat, and honestly probably go down a little bit more. So I'm glad I went with the extra thick concrete to worry, so that way I didn't have to pre-plan where I wanted to put this lift, because originally I wanted to put it over there, and then I was like, well, wait, I kind of want to put it over here because I want to keep that garage for long stuff so I can just back it down the driveway, not have to cut in around here. So I'm really glad that I did that, and it worked out. I proved it out. If you want to do a radiant heat install and you don't want to have to worry about where you got to put concrete anchors, just do 6.5 inch concrete, and you're never going to need to go deeper than 5 inches for any type of car lift or any type of CNC or whatever big machinery. The last big decision was deciding where to actually put the lift this way. This way was easy because I just centered it directly in the doors, because all my bays are even. So I just centered the edge of this with the edge of the door, since the door is 12 foot and this is 12 foot wide. But I wasn't sure where I wanted to put it this way. And I ended up putting it just 2 foot in front of this crack, in front of the expansion joint. And that gave me plenty of room for a workbench here, to swing this door open. And so that any work that's going on in front of the car, I wasn't going to be crammed up against a workbench here, or have the car extending too far forward that I couldn't get the door open or get stuff in between this door. Because you can see that lines up exactly with this Bilco door that goes to my basement. So that's going to be nice to get move stuff from the basement into the shop here, because I have a pretty decently sized basement. And then of course, I didn't want to put it too far back where if you were to raise big vehicles, it might hit the door if it's open and it's hot out. So this is far enough forward where when the door's open, you don't have to worry about any of this hitting the door. It can't even lift that high to get close to the door. Maybe if you had a really tall van or box truck, but you can have the door fully open and raise the car to max height. Plenty of clearance to get in the main entrance. I didn't want the back of the car blocking this, and you have to squeeze around and blah, blah, blah. So I'm really happy with how I centered it. I think I got it in a really good position. Plenty of room in front to work, plenty of room in back to get stuff around it. And the nice thing is I could, since I basically take the engine out the bottom, I could raise this up it goes up so far. I could push the engine out the back on a dolly, pull it around here to work on, or go out the front. There's a million options, but it's also got the shut-off bar there with a relay, and I put an emergency cutoff so I can shut the lift off when I'm done with it for the day, or if the switch gets stuck, run over and shut it off. But I'll show more of that later. I'll show the lift in operation. I'll show the max lift height, what it looks like. And like I said, I really don't think I could have chose a better lift. I think this is probably one of the best 10,000 pound lifts you can get. I know a lot of people like bend packs, but I wanted to go with the Challenger since it's made here in America. So really excited to have this now. Can start playing around with the car again here, hopefully soon, and doing some more projects and research and development. So we'll see what happens. Looking forward to it. Another really nice thing about the Challengers is they are an ALI certified lift. And I also had the lift professionally installed and professionally inspected. So every year I can get this lift inspected professionally to make sure it's safe, make sure everything's tight, there's no major issues with it. And I really just wanted to do everything legit with this, you know, especially if I'm gonna have other people working in here or whatever, you know, or if I'm gonna put other people's vehicles on this. I want this thing as legit as possible. I don't want anyone getting hurt, anyone getting injured. I don't want anyone's property getting damaged. I don't want my own property getting damaged. It only made sense to get something as legit as possible and get everything inspected and done properly. And that's what I did with this, and that's why I chose to get this lift and why I chose to get rid of my old bend wheel. I sold it, I made a decent amount of money off it. And I'm glad I purchased something new because this is a very safe lift. I feel safe under it. I know other people will feel safe under it and that no one's property will get damaged or my own property won't get damaged. Going to quickly show the operation of the lift. So again, like I said, got the emergency cutoff over here. Put that on. Now the lift's powered. And yeah, pretty much as simple as flipping the switch here. You got the arm set up for the Volvo lift points and everything. Yeah, you'll hear the locks clicking. It's got automatic lock. You don't manually lock anything as you raise it. They automatically lock, which is really nice. So yeah, that's pretty much the operation. And then of course, go back up. Get the lockdown, unlocks both sides, and pressure release all the way down. Pretty quick up and down. Nice and quiet. All the seals are really breaking in, so no weird sounds or squeaks or vibrations or anything. And when you're done for the day, come over here and shut this off. I got the car fully lifted up. Just wanted to do a walk around to show how high you can really get it. So this is max lift height for the lift itself, which is about 6 foot from there. Actually, well, it's 6 foot from there to the ground. And you can actually see why I did this 2 foot extension. Because if I walk back here, if I didn't have that 2 foot extension, which starts where those bolts are, then that crossbar would have basically run right on the top of this roof, and you probably wouldn't have been able to lift it up the full height. And again, if you have a big vehicle like my truck, which probably is about a foot taller, you can still lift the truck up max lift height, or if you have a box truck or a van, you could still lift it up to this height, but still have some clearance to the top. I think they make an even bigger one. They have, I think, a 3 and a 4 foot extension. So you can go even taller than this if you have like a really tall van or box truck. But again, limited to the 14-foot ceiling. So this is as tall as I go. And honestly, I don't really need any more than this. Because, you know, if we look at it, I got all this room here when I'm working under it. Plenty of room here. So, and then of course here, these poles and everything, got plenty of room here. So I'm not that tall. I'm only like 5'6", 5'7", so it's perfect for me. But even someone who's 6 foot could comfortably work under this lift. And of course, it comes with 2 of the 3-inch lift stack adapters. I think these are 3 or 4. So you could actually pop those in here and you get another 4 inches, get the car lifted up another 4 inches. So that's pretty cool. I mean, you can really get this car high. You don't have to worry about working under this thing and hitting your head. Like my old lift couldn't even go this high. It was probably a foot lower. So even me being real short, I was always kind of tucked under it. But yeah, it's the first time having the car on a lift in a really long time, and everything looks really good. There's definitely a little bit more surface rust here and there, but all the rubber, suspension, CV boots, billet transfer case looks really good. Still a little bit of coolant leak from the cracked block. Exhaust is still looking nice and ugly, but I'm gonna redo this whole exhaust one day. Rear subframe still looking really good. A little bit of rust on my axle stubs I designed, bolts, and some things are getting a little rusty, but that's okay. So yeah, it's really cool to have this thing up on the lift. Can finally start toying around with it again and checking everything out. But I've been driving it here and there, you know. But we'll make a whole bunch of more videos on this car. I got a lot of things to talk about. But I'm really happy with this lift, and I'm really happy that I finally got something in here that I can start working on the car again. And don't have to be laying on the floor, and can work on this thing real easily now and drop the engine out the bottom and whatnot when I need to. So happy with this, and don't think it could have turned out any better. And I'm really happy with getting this Challenger lift. The other thing I've been working on is finish up my electric install. This is a 3-phase electric install that I did myself. So I put the meter box in on the outside. I ran all the conduit, pulled the big 3-phase cable, did the panel. I've been doing a lot of the circuitry myself. So before, I only had these 3 breakers in, and they were down here. This breaker went to a dedicated 20 amp outlet here. I had this for the lights and this for the garage door openers, and I didn't have any 3-phase circuits. But now that I got the car lift over there and it has the 3-phase power unit, I was able to get my first 3-phase circuit installed. So you can see I got a 20 amp breaker here, 3-pole breaker, and I just used some 12-3 MC cable, rated for 20 amps, which is plenty. That lift only needed a 15 amp 3-phase circuit, but I always like to go a little bit bigger. So I ran all that up and around over to the emergency shutoff over there, which I'll show a little bit later. But the big thing I did was I also installed a whole bunch of outlets. And the nice thing about the 3-phase is you can do 3-wire multi-wire branch circuit. And a multi-wire branch circuit is a circuit where you can actually run 3 different circuits and use a shared neutral and a shared ground. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to save some wire and save on some conduit, because instead of having to run 3 separate breakers, each with their own hot and neutral, for a total of 6 wires, where each of them would be counted as a current carrying inductor, you only have to run 3 hots and 1 neutral. Because with the multi-wire branch circuit, the neutral will actually only carry the imbalance between the 3 phases, and therefore you only need 1 neutral, because that neutral will never see more than 20 amps because it's only carrying the imbalance between the 3 phases. Whereas if you just did a single phase circuit, the neutral is counted as a current carrying conductor. So you would have to have a separate neutral for each circuit. And therefore, if you have more than 3 current carrying inductors and a piece of conduit, you would have to derate the circuit. So a 20 amp circuit would then become a 15 amp or a 12 amp circuit. Now, the only disadvantage to this multi-wire branch circuit is you need to use this tied breaker here. And that tied breaker is because if one of the circuits sees more than 20 amps, that neutral is also going to see more than 20 amps, which means if it doesn't trip all the circuits, if other circuits are pulling current, then that neutral is going to go above 20 amps. So you need to tie them together so that if one of the circuits sees more than 20 amps, it has to trip all 3. So that way it's guaranteed that neutral can never carry more than 20 amps, which is in regular operation only the imbalance. So if you have each of these 3 phases pulling 20 amps, that neutral is actually not seeing any current. So it's a pretty cool little thing. It's got some disadvantages with GFCIs and AFCIs and whatnot, but for what I want it, to get something in really quick, just in one piece of conduit without having to derate it, and just get some circuits in, this is perfect for me. For things like maybe computers or routers or things that always need to be on, maybe not the best, because like I said, if one of the phases sees more than 20 amps, it trips them all. But for power tools and just stuff to work on the car over there, this is perfect. So basically the panel is on a different plane than these 2x4s that I ran all the way around the perimeter. And I just did 1/2 inch EMT. I used some flex here to convert over. That's why I need to put a box here to junction everything. And this runs all the way around the perimeter. I just used some 12 gauge THHN solid core. And so you can see we got one outlet there, one outlet there, one outlet here, and then another outlet here. And then you can see I got some other MC cable just to get around the door because it was too cumbersome to use the EMT around the door. Another outlet there and another outlet there. So how this is organized is these 2 outlets are on phase A. So these 2 outlets can have a combined share of 20 amps. And then I have these 2 outlets here can have a combined share of 20 amps. And then these 2 outlets here can have a combined share of 20 amps. So all these outlets are on 3 separate circuits. So each 2 outlets are on their own circuit. So it's not like these are on just one 20 amp circuit and you can only pull a combination of 20 between all 6. You can pull a combination of 20 between these 2, between these 2, and between these 2. So that's a really nice thing about the multi-wire branch circuit. One piece of conduit, 3 hots, and 1 neutral instead of either multi-pieces of conduit that would have to carry, 3 neutrals, 3 hots. So it cuts down on wiring costs, cuts down on conduit costs. It makes things a lot simpler for just basic outlets, which is all I need. No water in here yet, so I don't have to worry about GFCIs, none of that. These are just basic outlets just to get basic power. And again, I can put a workbench here, have an outlet there. Put another workbench here, have an outlet there. I can have this outlet over here, maybe for trickle chargers or for anything I need to power over here. And anything more, any big equipment that I ever get, it's gonna be 3-phase equipment anyway. So if I get a lathe, a CNC, a mill, I'm gonna have to run separate 3-phase circuits since I got the 3-phase service. So it's not like these are really ever gonna see a ton of current draw. Last thing I gotta do is I wanna put in a 50 amp 208 outlet. Probably just put it on one of these poles, run another set of 2x4s around. And again, just do some 1/2 inch EMT for a 50 amp circuit. For like my welder is what it would be for. I would just need a 2-pole breaker, 50 amp, and some 6 AWG. So I'll do that at some point, but I don't know where I wanna put my welder yet. So I'm not gonna spend too much time on that. Maybe when I get some more tools in here, I can figure that out. And then of course, I also put in a emergency cutoff heavy duty safety switch, 3-phase for the car lift. So you can see there's the 3 phases. This is technically required by code. This is a residential property. Even though I have a commercial 3-phase service, it's still residential code for the wiring. I don't even think that would be required. I don't even see anyone who puts those in, but again, I just wanted some extra safety. so that if this way this switch ever gets stuck, you can quickly run over there, cut the power to the thing, instead of having to weave your way over there to the panel, because the panel's, 30, 40 foot away. And God knows what's gonna be over here. So you'd have to be running through all this stuff, try and cut that breaker off if that ever gets stuck or if something bad ever happens electrical wise. There's also a little relay up there that's controlled off that bar, and that relay's always on. And then when that bar goes up, if the car ever gets too high, it shuts that relay off, which kills the power. I don't want that relay constantly energized. So this also gives me a way to just shut the whole power off to all the lift if I leave the building for the day. And then I also don't have to worry about the car, somehow raising itself up at night if there was some sort of problem with the switch. For how cheap that thing was, it makes sense to just put a shut off over here. It's in line of sight. I'm standing here operating this. I run over the 15 foot, shut it off. Worst comes to worst. Again, I don't think it's required for residential. I know for commercial, all induction motors have to have a shut off. I doubt my inspector would give me any grief for it. Like I said, it's the right thing to do. Keep things safe. This is a big piece of equipment. Would never want it running away. It has a pressure relief in here, but still, it's good to just shut that thing off when I'm done for the day. So yeah, been making a lot of progress. Been trying to record as much as I can. Well, actually, no, I haven't really been recording much, so that's why I'm making this video. But I got everything I need now. Get to work back on the T-5R. Hopefully do some Helmuth things. Took me 3 years to get here, but having this size garage, 25 foot from my house, and all on the same property, and having paid for it all cash is a great thing to have, because I don't really have any overhead now. The only overhead is the electric, which is like 30, 40 bucks a month, because lights, lift, some basic things, doesn't use much. So that's about it for this garage. I'll do some workbenches, some shelving, get all my tools and everything moved in here, but I don't want to do insulation, walls, ceilings, heat. I'm gonna save that for another year or two when I get Helmuth running, making some money. And then I can do those things later if I really do end up spending a lot of time in here and Helmuth really does grow and kind of take off. But for now, I'm happy with this. I'm glad I went with the 50 by 36 with 14 foot ceilings and 12 foot doors. Gives me plenty of room. This is just plenty for a residential garage right next to my house. I don't think you can beat it. There's a lot of work to get here, but it was well worth it. And hopefully I can start pumping out some more content soon on the T-5R, research and development, and Helmuth stuff. So let's see.